Today, Larry has a follow-up regarding subscription models, and friends don't let friends shoot vertical video, or do they? Also, I've got special guest Monica on the show to talk about our New Zealand adventure so far. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 852 for sometime in the middle of January.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
So, here I am in New Zealand. Here we are in New Zealand. We traveled for like 27 hours straight. That was pretty much the longest flight we've ever done, from Frankfurt to Dubai to Auckland, and well, here we are at the beginning of a long trip that will take us even higher up to the north, and all the way down to the southern tip of New Zealand's South Islands. We started in Auckland and then made our way to Coromandel. We've booked most of our accommodations, 3 nights here, 3 nights there. We're now down in Napier. Did a stop in between in Rotorua and one in Taupo, not sure how to pronounce that. We've also booked a few of the attractions, not too many, because we want to explore New Zealand and find interesting places that are more off the beaten path, stuff that you cannot really read about in TripAdvisor. And the best way to do that is through locals. And that's why we mostly stay in bed and breakfast. We've done that several times before, and we've always got the best tips from locals. So that's what we're doing here. And of course, we're also here for photography, but we're taking it kind of easy for the first couple of weeks at least. When we came here, our inner clock was 12 hours off from where we come from, and it took a few days for us to get used to it. And now after over a week, we're still kind of getting up much earlier than usual. So yeah, it changes things. But you know what? Let me get Monica on to talk about all this. So here we are at our little kitchen table in Napier, in the place that we're now staying in for 3 nights, 4 days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And who am I talking to?
You are talking to Monica, your significant other, still. I hope also
what do you mean still?
After this journey. So.
No, we're actually getting along really well. So, I thought I'd get you on the show for once to, just recap. I mean, we've been here together for over a week now, and you and I both have different views of New Zealand and different experiences and different interests here. So I thought it would be interesting to get you on the show. Now, this is not entirely about photography because we are on vacation here, so we do take time to do photography, but it's not the main purpose. And let's see. So, I mean, this is our first time on the Southern Hemisphere.
Absolutely, yeah. We have been quite near to the equator, but never crossed it so far.
The closest was Ethiopia. Yes. It was like 11 degrees north.
Mm-hmm. And this stay here is pretty different. I mean, on the one hand, is according to what I've expected, but on the other hand, it never occurred to me how close we are to the equator right now. And you actually had to tell me that New Zealand is quite close to it. It doesn't feel like it.
Close. It's at 36 degrees south. So
yeah, but much closer than we are.
Than you thought. Yeah.
Than we thought. Yeah, and it's the first rainy days today. So I think we will have rain tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Mm. And so far, it was super sunny here.
New Zealand is the place with the ozone hole above it.
Right. It was not extremely hot. I don't know how it is in Fahrenheit, but we had about 23 to 25 degrees Celsius. But what you quickly experience when you're here is that you get roasted in a very short time, because the UV index is so high. So sun is really burning down on us. And that is something you have to work with when you are in New Zealand.
Yeah, UV index is something that we're now very familiar with. And the lowest sun protection factor you can buy is like 30. And normally you'd apply a 50 or 50 plus. And we've been doing this. And we had to. I mean, otherwise, at least with my skin, I'd be burned in 15 minutes.
Yeah, same here. And the funny thing is that normally my skin never gets color apart from red when I've just burned. But here, even using sunscreen with a factor of 50 plus, my skin just tries to build up some color just as out of self-defense.
Which it usually doesn't do.
It never does. And I really look as if I had seen the sun in a good way, although I use the highest sunscreen available here. So that's a bit funny, and that I've never experienced before. And what is also interesting that in a lot of cafes you find a bottle of sunscreen at the counter, also offers
for everyone to use.
And what is also funny, what was funny to me when I saw that a lot of cafes actually sell hats.
Hats, you can buy hats pretty much everywhere. Straw hats, different like simple hats, everywhere. Panama hats, everywhere. You get those for a good reason again. For a good reason,
because when the UV index is above 10, you normally should not leave the house without using a hat.
And sun protection, long sleeves sometimes are a good idea.
Yeah, I cannot understand people running here on spaghetti tops. I would not be able to do that. So normally, longish shorts and t-shirts are what we use. Maybe it would be better even to wear a shirt or longer trousers. But okay. I'm not that crazy because it's nice to have a bit of a summer feeling.
Yeah, so it is summer here. It's the peak of the season pretty much. Again, we're recording this mid-January. So the light, of course, obviously, we're looking at a lot of very harsh light. We're also with 36 degrees relatively close to the equator. So the sun comes up really fast in the morning and goes down pretty fast in the evening. We haven't really had a sun. Well, yes, we did have a sunrise once, which was just a couple of days ago when we drove to visit Paul. Paul was invited us. He's a listener, and he invited us to Taihape, and we met him, and we went for. He organized a few things for us, including sheep shearing.
Yes.
So Monica, you're all into fiber, into wool. You spin, you knit, you dye, you do like all sorts of things with wool. So going to what's here called a sheep station, which is pretty much a sheep farm, a big sheep farm. We're talking 10 or 20,000 sheep. We're talking a lot of sheep in one of these farms, and Paul organized that we could attend or just watch and photograph professional sheep shearers doing their thing. This was, again, we were the only non-shearers there.
Yeah, that was super interesting because, I mean, they grab one of the sheep that is in a pen, waiting to be shorn. I mean, not really waiting. They would love it more to just stay outside, but they get all squished into a pen. Then one of the shearers grabs the sheep,
pulls it out,
puts it in between his knees, and then it takes less than a minute to shear that sheep.
I'd say 40 seconds maybe for a sheep to be shorn. And there's loud music blaring. There's like, in that case, there were 5 shearers working in parallel. So that's like over 5 sheep a minute. We did the math. They probably, if they work through and they don't talk, they just do their job. They're probably gonna do like 2,000 sheeps in one day.
Yeah.
So in 10 days, the entire farm is shorn.
Yeah, and that is pretty big business for them because they get paid by the sheep. So the more they manage to share, the better the outcome is, so to say.
Wasn't it a couple of dollars, New Zealand dollars a sheep,
I
something
think
along
$2
those
to
lines?
$3 a sheep, I think.
Okay, so we were in there for probably 45 minutes, and we watched them and we photographed them, and we're just working on some of the photos to send back to them. And they were totally fine with us doing this. Apart from that one lady whose job, there were two ladies whose job was to sort the wool into the bad and the good stuff.
Yeah, the big pile that is about to be compressed into bales later on. And the shearer starts the sorting, so to say, because the wool they shear up from the legs is normally super dirty, so they put it aside pretty quickly. And then the woman checks what is still not good and puts it also to the side, and
Right.
then the good stuff goes into the into the big pile.
So she has kind of a kind of a squeegee that she uses to sort. It was like we were always in the way. She was like, "Get out of my way, out of my way." But it was exciting to photograph because it was like it was action. It was real action, and we managed to get close to some of the things without getting shorn ourselves.
What was cool was the floor is made out of wood. And because of all the lanolin, the wool is
That's
wood
the fat
is
in the wool,
the
right?
fat, right? The wood on the floor is really slippery. So they really use the texture of the floor to help sort the wool. So when they go with the squeegee, it really slides away. It's really it's super interesting to see.
So that was one of the things we did. We also went to a lodge up in the mountains, which was, again, just one of those things you could rent a house there, you could stay there. It's above a canyon. There's no one else near. It's just the nature around it, as with so many places here, is so amazing. The trees are huge. Everything is kind of big here. Things grow very fast.
Everything's very lush.
Yeah, and I managed to fly the drone there over the canyon, which is, I don't know, 300 meters deep at that point, 300 meters deep, which is like almost 1,000 feet. I'm just guessing, but it was cool. It was scary to fly that drone over the canyon, but yeah. So got some video footage from there, and then we went down to the river and did a little bit of rafting there, and had a nice picnic. So that was a great day. Very exciting stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks, Paul, for organizing that. That was
Marie.
And Marie was with us too, Paul's wife.
And Stormy the dog.
And Stormy the dog. I took a nice picture of Stormy. I should put this online. So yeah, photography is it's a challenge because so far most of what we had was the blaring sun during the day. Further up in the north, when we landed in Auckland, we had more clouds. It was closer to the sea, so we had more clouds and more overcast. But now we've had bright sun without any clouds for a week, pretty much.
Yeah, very
And
harsh contrast.
Just now that we arrived in Napier, it started to. The clouds started to pull in, and it's now raining, and it will probably rain for a couple of days, which is kind of a bit of a relief, right?
Yes, you can stay inside and not feel bad. I mean, today we did a short walk. Napier is known for its Art Deco.
Yeah.
Art Deco houses, and we did a short walk of about the entire tour was 2 hours, so
Yeah.
20 minutes inside and 1.5 hours outside. And then we did some shopping, but now we're sitting here in the kitchen and feeling pretty smart about not going out because it's so rainy outside, and we can do other stuff or just doze away.
So Napier
nice.
Napier is the food and wine capital of the North Island here of New Zealand.
Hawke's Bay.
Hawke's Bay, yeah, Hawke's Bay. The reason this architecture is so well preserved and there is so much of the Art Deco architecture is because during the Depression there was a huge earthquake here that pretty much destroyed the city, and they had to rebuild the entire thing, and they decided to do this in that style, and that was the style that was being built back then. while the rest of the world pretty much was in a depression and didn't build much, but they had to rebuild, so they did it.
At least the entire business district.
In the business district and the downtown area, there's a lot of amazing, great architecture here. Again, it's also the wine capital here up in the north, so we are going to have a wine-related tour tomorrow.
Wine and craft beer.
Wine and craft beer. We're going to do the tourist thing for a day. We haven't booked that much of the tourist stuff, but a few key things we have, and including here the wine thing, which we're both fans of wine, so we'll. This is a door-to-door tour. They pick us up and they drop us back here, which I think is necessary.
Sounds like a pretty good idea.
That sounds like a good plan. We've also done a couple of more on the tourist side things a bit further up north near Rotorua. One was
the thermal village.
The thermal village, right, which is in Rotorua. It's a part of the old Maori space where they live among. Well, there's geothermal activity there. There's hot springs coming to the surface. There's steam everywhere, and they live among that. Relatively touristy, but still a very informative tour. The people who hold the tour, the Maori who hold the tour, are really good at explaining everything. So we learned a lot about Maori culture there.
And also, it's an active village. So between 9 in the morning and 5:30 in the afternoon, there are the tours. And apart from that, I mean, people live there. That's their hometown, so to say. And they showed that how they make use of the geothermal activities there. So they use it to cook. They use it to cook. They have pools there, very deep. Nobody actually can say how deep they are. And they get hotter the deeper they are. And they could bring out a cookbook because they exactly know in which pool how long to steam which kind of produce or meat. So they say mussels in this pool 15 to 30 seconds, carrots in this pool 2 minutes. And they even pack entire meals into steam-filled boxes and leave them there for, 4 hours. And when they come back, everything is cooked and ready to go.
It's the Maori slow cooker.
Absolutely. And then they have creeks, and they channel the water in certain pools there where they can bath. Then they have
hot bath at any time of the day. Yeah,
right. So that is pretty awesome to see how you actually do not need to have your own bathroom or maybe your own bathtub or a shower or even kitchen. I mean, for hundreds of years, they cooked their stuff in there. So the houses, they met at the place where they cooked because they didn't have anything compared in the house.
Shared cooking space.
A community cooking space.
Right, and cooking in air quotes because it's more like steaming and...
Or simmering in the pools because some of the water in the pools gets up to
boiling temperature
and above. Yeah.
So the other thing, same as with Paul. I mean, Paul reached out and asked if we wanted to experience a few things that are not on the tourist route, and we are so happy about this because, I mean. We did see a few places that you can buy postcards at, but those were not the places. And in general, the audience, the community, so many people have provided tips and hints of where to go, what to see, stuff that again often isn't very touristy, which we appreciate. And we had this one thing that was just amazing. Monica, you're also a podcaster.
Yeah, right.
And we together have a little German podcast where we just talk about things the same way we do right now, but in German. And it's his own podcast. It's called Abzug FM. And we did a little episode of maybe half a week into this.
Yeah.
We did a little episode where we just talked about our initial impressions of New Zealand. And one of the things we mentioned is that we didn't managed to get tickets to Hobbiton. Hobbiton is this the filming set for The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings movies, which is where the hobbits live. The buildings with the little round doors underground, and the movie set. Mm-hmm. And it is an attraction here. It's well organized. You can go there. You can get tickets. You can get a tour. And we went online and we didn't find anything. It was all sold out.
It was all fully booked.
It was all fully booked. Yeah. And and then the day before we would have gone there, you got contacted by Annika.
Yeah, I got contacted by Annika. She's one of the listeners also of my fiber-related German podcast. And we've met two years ago when she visited Germany. She is
from Germany?
From Germany originally, but teaches at a university here in New Zealand. And she contacted me via Instagram. So you come over. So
we should meet.
We should meet. And I said, of course, let me check out our schedule. And yeah. And then she also listened to that one podcast episode where we complained that
we didn't really complain.
Yeah, a little bit that the tickets for Hobbiton were all sold out. And then she contacted me and she said, you should have told me that earlier because I might have an idea how to get you some tickets. I will not dig deeper into that because that's her secret. And also I told her, so I have another thing going. I mailed a certain company if I could visit their place, and they didn't respond so far.
It's a spinning wheel maker.
It's the Magikrafft is a spinning wheel, well-known spinning wheel maker here in New Zealand. And I own a wheel from Magikrafft, so I was interested if I could visit their workshop. So, and she dropped me a few lines via Instagram, and she said, "Okay, I've also contacted the Magikrafft guys, and they are on holiday, but there will be somebody in the workshop, so we might get a tour. And concerning Hobbiton, let me check what I can do.
Let me pull a few strings."
Yes, and that she did. So big shout out to Annika. That was really, really awesome. And so she managed to get us on a tour for on the next day in the morning. And we drove over to, what was the name of the little town? Well, let's call it Hobbiton. It's not Hobbiton, but it's
now for the tour, or from tourist point of view, it's Hobbiton.
It's Hobbiton, yeah. And so we did the tour, and actually what was so cool is when you first enter that farmland where the movie was produced, you wonder how a landscape could look like that. And apart from, I think, one tree that has been transplanted and one tree that is actually not real,
they built an entire tree on the set, but you can't tell.
You can tell. The rest
cannot tell.
The rest is totally real. I mean, there are the most beautiful hills, massive trees on there. Everything is green and lush, and then all of a sudden, a flock of sheep is strolling by, and the landscape is so beautiful. It's just unreal to look at. You cannot believe it.
It's unreal, and if you shoot something today, you might have to do a bit of green screen here because there's something unsightly, and then there's a
fence out,
or clone a fence out, or take care of some electric masts in the background, that kind of stuff. And they didn't have to do anything of that there. It was just brilliant to see this pristine piece of landscape and what they've made with it. Now, this is an outside set. Just to make sure everyone understands this, you cannot go inside Bilbo Baggins' house. It's just it's literally the front and the doors, and then there's the chimneys coming out, and there's some smoke from some of the chimneys, but it's all like Manuka wood chips burning in there to give you kind of the impression there's a fire in the fireplace. But the trees and everything is pretty much all real. There's gardeners who keep that thing pristine, and the way this happened is that I think Peter Jackson, they found that space.
They flew over it
with a helicopter. They did scouting. They found this. They got in contact with a farmer,
and they saw the trees. That's what made them consider the spot. It was all about the trees.
And the trees, and there's a lake which also fits in the story, and they pretty much talk to the farmer, and the farmer, being also a bit of a businessman, was okay with them doing this.
Yeah, first he said you can do it, but then you clean the spot afterwards and go out.
But then people started to want to see the set, and for the next shooting,
When they came back for The Hobbit,
yeah,
he said, well, okay, you can have it again, but this time please build the set permanently.
yeah. So he's I think he's making good money with
he is.
with the tours there. It's really well organized. I think they have 80 guides there, and in
total 400 people working at the place.
and on the weekends there's like tours every 10 minutes. There's so from a photography point of view, there's a lot of tourists there.
It's cheesy.
It's a bit cheesy, but being on that set and seeing the exteriors there, that is quite a neat thing to see.
The most impressive thing for me was arriving with the bus at the entry where the tour started.
Yeah.
Because when you arrive in the bus, they play that video where you see
They have a little excerpt from the movie,
right. And then you look over that landscape and it literally gives you goosebumps because it's just so amazingly beautiful.
And if you've seen the movies, and if you kind of are a fan of that environment, of that universe, then that's certainly a place to see.
Absolutely, yeah. So then being in that environment and looking at all those little houses, it was nice to see it, but it was a bit, from my point of view, it was a bit too much. But the farmland, that is just amazing. I'm super happy that I had a chance to see it. Yeah.
Right. So that's, I think, it so far. I mean, the vegetation here is amazing. Landscapes, you could pretty much stop anywhere and take good photos here. So
apart from the light right now.
Well, apart from the light is really the thing, but of course, I mean, it's summer right now, and the days are very long, which means the sunrise is very early, the sunset is very late, and we're still taking it slow. We're not hurrying. We've booked bed and breakfasts all over the North and South Island, usually like 3 nights here, 3 nights there. So we're taking our time. Again, a few things we have picked out up front and booked, but often we just go to a place and
check out
and check it out and find out more while we're on the way, which always also in the past has always worked out really well for us. It's not that we kind of have to be busy here every minute of the day.
No, it's also important to just sit somewhere, take up the atmosphere, and in this case, New Zealand has a lot of funny birds. When I can say so, when you just sit down in the garden, you hear a lot of animal noises that you haven't experienced before. So it's difficult to find out, is this a bird or whatever exactly is it. So yesterday evening we heard something that sounded really funny, and you checked out on your phone if there are some birds known that do that kind of sound. So
might be a gray warbler here. I've listened to some sounds online. So anyway, the North Island. We are going to leave the North Island in a couple of days. Mm-hmm. We'll stop over in Wellington, where we are going to meet someone else, another Paul, who reached out through the podcast, and who will meet us there. Not exactly sure what we're going to do there. Probably listen to a concert. Wellington
and have
a picnic or something along those lines. And Weta Workshop, again, one of those things we have booked. We made sure to book because it's almost like a pilgrimage to go to Weta Workshop. We're great fans. We're
great fans and parts of the Mako community. So that is something what you just cannot miss.
You cannot miss. And then it's going to be pretty much almost 4 weeks on the South Island, mm-hmm. which, again, culturally will be different, landscape-wise will be different.
And also the plants, so trees and everything will be different.
And the people there, as far as we know, will be even more laid back than the ones here in the north.
That's what the northerners tell you.
But in general, the people are so amazing, and I think I want to just finish this up with saying a big thank you to everyone in the community who has reached out, who has sent in suggestions, who has contacted us, and has made a few things possible. If you are anywhere on the South Island, we're going to be down there. So maybe someone knows something or has some good tips, send them to me. Also, voicemail is welcome. I will try to do weekly episodes from now on again. I'll do my best to manage that. Has kind of depends a bit on the internet. Up here in the North Island, it's fairly good, so it should be no problem to upload. Down in the South, I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. But Matt is there helping to release the episodes, so I think we should be okay.
Keep your fingers crossed that we find the cafe that has free Wi-Fi.
That will be probably one of the go-to spots. So,
and one more shout out, because he's not part of the community yet, but maybe sooner or later, is Andy from Magic-Craft.
Oh yeah, Andrew.
He not only made us tea, but also got a short introduction into podcasts from us, and then he showed us the workshop, the Magic-Craft workshop, and how they do the spinning wheels, and that was really an awesome afternoon. So
that was cool too, and there are also going to be a few photos from there, behind the scenes of a spinning wheel maker, a spinning wheel factory.
Yeah, it's a small factory.
It's a workshop. Yeah, it's more a workshop.
Yeah.
All right, so Monica, thank you so much, and
thank you.
I think I'll have you back here.
That's okay.
Let me say a quick thank you to this week's sponsor, Nations Photo Lab. Clear your camera roll and print out your favorite moments. Get 15 free square prints from Nations Photo Lab. Just head to nationsphotolab.com/print your photos and use code TOPFLOOR15. Nations Photo Lab prints are made by photographers for photographers. Choose from the popular 4x4 or 5x5 inch size prints on their professional quality luster paper, and voila! You've turned your Instagrams into instant memories that'll last for years to come. Your photos don't belong on your phone. Photo prints are the perfect way to personalize any space, whether you're filling empty frames that sit on your shelves, making a collage of photos to place in your office, or using prints in a decorative banner for your bestie's bachelorette. Print your trip overseas, your baby's first step, or your client's engagement session. Nations Photo Lab prints are the perfect way to capture your favorite moments. Make every moment matter. Try Nations Photo Lab today and head to nationsphotolab.com/print your photos and use code TOPFLOOR15 for your 15 free square prints. That's nationsphotolab.com/print your photos and code TOPFLOOR15. And I thank them for the support. All right, that was Monica, and I'm pretty sure she will be back here on the show on a future episode. And by the way, we've also set up an online photo album that we share the odd picture in, just mostly snapshots. But if you want to follow along, it's at tfttf.com/nzphotos or nzphotos according to the Kiwis. tfttf.com/nzphotos. And yeah, check it out. So here's a thing that I wanted to talk about for a while, and it hasn't there hasn't been a good opportunity to do that, but recently it happened again. And what I did is I used vertical video for something, and I got scolded for it by a few people online. Like, how could you use vertical video? And of course some of that was in jest, but yeah, it's still, I mean, what is wrong with vertical video? Why are so many people seemingly against it? And obviously, lots of people make fun of it online. There's videos about vertical video syndrome, VVS, and how it can be avoided. But honestly, why? I mean, this is a question that comes up over and over again. What is wrong with that? Now, if we look at a bit at the history of aspect ratios, if you look through the history of formats of aspect ratios, widescreen as we know it today wasn't always the norm. right? If you look at the original Kodak camera that shot round photos, it was masked. It had a square piece of paper in there, but it was masked, or film in there, but it was masked. Probably because the corners were too fuzzy or too out of focus because of the quality of the optics. If you look at medium format, 120 film, the film photographers among you will know it. Some of the most famous pictures have been shot on square format, like from a Hasselblad or from the Rolleiflex. Vivian Maier is a good example there. So that's the 6x6 format, 6x6 centimeters, that is. There's also other widths of the format, 6x7, 6x8, 6x9, 6x12, even more panoramic. And then 35 millimeters, it's 24 millimeters high, 36 millimeters wide. So that's it's starting to get kind of the slightly wider format is getting more the norm, or has got more the norm in history. It's more rectangular. It's the 2:3 aspect ratio that we also know on today's DSLRs. But then there's also the 4:3 aspect ratio that is Micro Four Thirds, for example. It used to be the norm for computer screens for a long time. Today's televisions are usually 16:9. And then if you look into cinema, we have a wild mix of aspect ratios: 1.85:1, 2:1, 2.35:1, 21:9. If you Google that, these aspect ratios for film, you can see that over the history of movies, there have been a lot of different aspect ratios, and still are. And aspect ratios are also not just a result of the available technology, but also a result of the times and the taste. Good example here is Budapest, Grand Budapest Hotel, the movie. Great movie. I really liked it. And throughout the movie, you will notice it uses 3 different aspect ratios that are tied to the different times those scenes play in. There's 1.85:1, which is often used today. Then there's 2.35:1, which is wider, also in use today, but also in fashion in the 60s. So that's some scenes that play there. And then there's 1.37:1, which is also known as the Academy ratio. That was often used before 1950. And that's, again, in the Grand Budapest Hotel, that's used in the parts that played earlier. So the history of aspect ratios is a really interesting one, and we're not done yet. They changed over time. So that's the history of aspect ratios. But then, of course, there's also a physiological side to that. The eyes, our eyes, I mean, they are side by side. They are not on top of each other. They are widescreen, right? We are made for widescreen. Individual eyes, if you put them together, I mean, our brain kind of automatically generates a wide format out of 2 not so wide eyes, but we perceive that as a wide format, and that's how we see. And then the history, the physiological side, there's also the content side, of course. Here's a story. Monica and I, we were in the Himalayas in Tibet many years ago, and we saw yak herders that, while we were hiking and while they were herding the yaks, the yaks that transported our luggage and things, they were also spinning. They were spinning wool, and they were using drop spindles, which is pretty much a string. They had the fleece, the unspun fleece wrapped around their hands, and then the string hangs down. I'm using all the wrong terms. Monica is giving me the eye here. Let me just try to kind of to explain that to the layman. The thing that comes out of the fleece that turns into the string hangs down, and then at the bottom of it is the drop spindle, and that turns, and that's how they spin the wool. But this is a generally vertical thing, right? It goes from the top to the bottom. And of course, I shot video there, and to be as close as possible to the action, I shot that vertical. That was the best format possible to use for that. Another story, a friend of mine was once hired to shoot video. He's a professional video maker, and he was hired to shoot video for a shop display. So like some boutique has a few screens, and they want to have some video playing on those screens to advertise and to show stuff to people. Those are 16:9 screens. So far, so good, but they are mounted vertically. So he had to turn his camera sideways 90 degrees, which was tough for him because he had a hard time operating them well. But the stuff he shot for them, he had to shoot at with a 90-degree tilted camera. So the content or the usage of the content does, of course, also dictate your aspect ratio, and that might as well then be vertical. Let's see, history, physiological parameters, the content, the technology. Let's talk about technology here for a second as well. Because, of course, as much as an aspect ratio can be used to set a time period, it is also linked to the technology. And in the case of vertical video, it's tightly linked to our smartphones, of course, which we hold with a vertical screen orientation. I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't done the math. Haven't done the statistics, but I would say that 90% of the time we hold our phones vertically. And if you look at video on the different platforms, on Snapchat or on Periscope or on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, a lot of it's either mandated to be vertical or it's easier to be vertical. Some companies even have gone to making this square, the video by default square, so it doesn't matter which orientation you hold your device. It's just always going to be square. And in my case, I think the one that got this whole thing kicked off was I posted a video snippet to Twitter that I shot for an Instagram story. So Instagram stories are vertical by default. And I had the snippet on my phone, used it in an Instagram story, but I thought it was interesting enough to put it on Twitter. And that was a perfect fit because Twitter also uses vertical video. So yeah, but that's how I got all the feedback. So conclusion. I mean, the different aspect ratios make sense depending on history, on physiology, on content, on technology. So is vertical video bad? Well, if you want to shoot a movie for the big cinema screen, it certainly wouldn't be my first choice. But if you want to share something that will most likely be consumed only on a small vertical handheld screen, I don't see any issues with vertical video. So what are your thoughts? Let me know. Send a voicemail to voice@tfttf.com. Do you shoot vertical video and do you get told off because you do it? voice@tfttf.com. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Hey, Chris. Larry from Baltimore, Maryland. Regarding the subscription situation with Lightroom from your episode of this past week, I was also wondering that in some time in the future, I suspect there will be a point where I will simply not be able to afford the extra $10 a month, and was wondering if you knew if Lightroom would work at all if you weren't connected to the subscription. Maybe still be able to open your collections and so forth, but not edit or add any pictures, or if it simply would tell you that you're not subscribed, go away. Thanks for any insights you may have.
Thanks, Larry. That's a very good question. Will Lightroom stop working after your subscription ends? And this has been a big question for a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are looking into moving on to something else, and I can't blame you for it, because the monthly subscription, if you're not professional, if you don't have a huge collection, that is a kind of a logical step to try to find something else. And there are alternatives coming on the market slowly, but they're getting there, and I'm still waiting for Serif to come out with an Affinity Lightroom killer, if that's going to happen. I know they're working on that, but I don't use Photoshop anymore. I'm on Affinity Photo pretty much all the time now when I do Photoshop related stuff or Photoshop like stuff. But Lightroom is still my go-to thing. And for me, I don't really see a big alternative to Lightroom for myself. But again, Larry, I understand that at one point you might just stop wanting to pay for the subscription. And Adobe has been asked that question a lot, and they say that Lightroom will still work to view your photos and to export your photos without a subscription. There's a blog entry on Lightroom. But they are disabling functionality on the old versions. On some of those, the develop and map modules have kind of been disabled for non-subscribed users. But the product manager is quoted. Tom Hoggerty is the product manager. He's quoted with this will not impact your previous standalone versions of Lightroom, and we will continue to provide upgrades to the perpetual versions of Lightroom, so whatever that means. But to my knowledge, if you stop the subscription, you will still be able to view your photos and to export them, so you can at least get your developed versions out of Lightroom. And I hope that answers your question. All right, that was it for this episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thank you so much for being subscribed. And if you're not, go to tfttf.com. There's a big subscribe button on the side, and that'll make sure you get the show every time delivered to you automatically. Of course, if you like this episode, let me know by giving TFTTF a rating on iTunes or by supporting it in any other way. Patreon is great. Word of mouth is great. I'm just very grateful for all your support, and every bit helps. More at tfttf.com/support. Thank you. Music for the show by Jeff Smith, silent partner, Hans-Peter Kagwert Publishing, and Slack Challenges by Release Pixie, Matt Rafsitar, Armstead, Slack Imitations by Chief Imitation Officer CIO Rusty Rust. Yep, the Slack is still a thing, and I love the discussions there. The link to get on the Slack is in the show notes. That's it from New Zealand. My name is Chris Marquardt. You'll find me on social media.
And I told you that you laughed.
Go out and take amazing photos.
I remember
Share them with the world.
as easy as it seemed.
Be nice to each other.
Easy as to leave it all.
And happy shooting.